So Coach Jeff, what is a spin up? What do we why do we do this on the bike as we get our bike sessions going?
Hey Andrew, good to be back. I remember recording all of those drills and strength exercises and all of those. Quite a few trips and quite a few sore days afterwards. But no, spin ups is a very fundamental warm up exercise that you do to prepare your legs for the session and the efforts that are to come. Spin ups, I call, are kind of like the strides of running. It primes the body, primes the legs for that bike workout. And the goal of a spin up is to start off kind of at a zero, so to speak, and work your way slowly building the cadence up to an exaggeratedly high turnover, higher cadence, a higher turnover than what you would do probably in that main set and even on race day. And spin ups are largely understood as kind of like 100 plus or 100 to 115 even RPM. And so what you're going to do is keep the effort or watts the same. So if we are in level mode indoors cycling or we are outside, we know that if we increase our cadence from, let's say, 80 to 90, that traditionally adds watts or adds effort or adds speed.
Yeah.
The goal of spin ups in a warm up is to keep the watt level or that effort the same. Right. So if you're indoors, you want to do erg mode, but what you're doing is increasing the cadence at a consistent watt level, and you're exaggeratedly high with that. And so once you start getting up to that kind of call it 90 plus or maybe a race day cadence or higher, it starts to get a little bit uncomfortable. You have to be a little bit intentional with your body swaying, bouncing up and down on that saddle. And the whole goal is to work your way up to that exaggeratedly high cadence, keeping the integrity of your positioning and your form. You're going to be a little bit uncomfortable doing that. You're going to have to use your core a little bit more. But once you get up to that 100, 115-ish cadence, hold that for about 10 or 15 seconds, and then slowly bring those RPMs back down. That's the goal of a spin up. Kind of like strides in running, the goal isn't to just sprint as hard as you can for 50 yards. It is to have an exaggeratedly good or higher turnover, or it's your chance to just focus on kind of perfect form, perfect posture, intentionally to prime you for that main set.
Yeah, so in priming us for that main set, I mean, I always get spin ups at the start of my workout. TriDot is never like, oh, end your workout with spin ups. It's always something we do right at the very beginning of a bike session. Why is that? What is this doing for our body physically to get us ready for the effort to come?
Good question. If you have an exaggeratedly high cadence or higher turnover than what you're going to be doing in the main set, what that's doing, it's called motor unit recruitment. If we want to get real nerdy, you have axons, like little hands slapped on the muscle belly of your muscles, and the firing rate of that twitch, so to speak, that electricity, what you're doing is you're priming that, and you're getting your neuromuscular twitching firing rate primed and ready, so to speak. And so that later on in the middle of the workout, when you kind of go from a zone 2 watts to a zone 4 or 5 plus, kind of all in that instantaneous set, that you are primed and ready, and your body's used to that. It's done it before. And so you're going to have a better workout and make it longer into that set before true fatigue, right?
So I want to call attention, Jeff, to a few kind of form things that you mentioned. You mentioned that we shouldn't be bouncing in the saddle at that high rate. We want to keep our body still and composed and in our cycling position. You mentioned that we want a certain RPM. We want to get over 100 RPMs. We want the wattage. We want the effort to stay easy breezy. We shouldn't be straining with the effort. That the cadence, the high cadence, is what makes us challenging. But the effort should remain low. So if you're biking outdoors, you're switching to an easier gear, I would imagine, to keep that effort easy. You mentioned inside, you can do this on erg mode so that the smart trainer will keep this easy. Are there any other kind of form kind of elements we should be paying attention to here? Are there any kind of do's and don'ts to spin ups?
Absolutely. You're going to want to do spin ups sitting up. So you don't want to do it down in that arrow position. You're going to want to
Okay.
sit up. You're going to want to hold wider on the drop downs or wider on that base bar to give you better positioning, to give you better balancing so you don't bounce up and down. So spin ups are traditionally done sitting up. High cadence pedaling is another one that is similar to spin ups, but not to be confused with spin ups. So, high cadence pedaling is something that you'll do in the arrow position. You'll get up to that exaggeratedly high cadence and you'll hold it for longer sets. And the goal is to be able to do that over time and at higher efforts as well. But spin ups is a step down, so to speak, and a great precursor to high cadence pedaling. But another thing you want to focus on is a relaxed grip. You want to be able to wiggle those fingers. You don't want to be super tense. And you also
Okay.
are going to want to incorporate belly breathing out of that diaphragm, letting that belly come in and out instead of trying to do it all on the chest, which is keeping you tense. And so that's going to allow also in between those breaths, that range of motion in between the belly movement for that knee to come up and down in a more efficient pattern. You also want to look down periodically through that spin up and just make sure your knees are tracking evenly over the clip in or the widest part of your foot. You don't want a knee kind of kicking up and wide, or every now and then you may be someone that, hey, you know what, every now and then on that outdoor ride, my right knee is tapping the top tube, right? So if you've got a knee that's buckling in or a cleat that's not straight, high cadence pedaling is an exaggerated movement where that if you have an inefficiency or a deviation, you should be able to see that more exaggeratedly and see if your knee is tracking even over that pedal.
Well, Jeff, that's a killer explanation of spin ups. I appreciate you coming on the show. You mentioned high cadence pedaling, and so be on the lookout. High cadence pedaling will be a bike drill that we touch on a future episode of the TriDot Triathlon show. But that is it for today, Jeff. When would an athlete expect to see spin ups on the calendar? Will every athlete see this drill? Will they see it every bike session? Certain bike sessions? How often should we expect to see spin ups on the calendar?
Spin ups are on there pretty frequently. I'd say more so than other cycling drills. There are workouts that are specifically designed for form focus. So you might see single leg drill, things like that, as opposed to spin ups. But kind of a more traditional workout, you would see that. It's different for everybody, but I would say spin ups, you should see 1 to 2 out of 3 sessions on that. But again, it's different for everybody. But it is a very common, safe go-to one, and then the other ones will thrown in here and there based on the design of the day.